Dustin, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Trey. How you doing? How's Austin?
I am doing great. Thank you so much. And man, you are a hardworking dude. You were on tour much of the year, and you're coming to Austin this weekend. Even though I'm going to Dallas for Texas OU this weekend, my plan is to come see the Sunday show, and I'm really looking forward to that. Considering how much you're doing stand up across this country, how much time have you spent here in Austin doing so?
A lot. I mean, Austin is kind of the one of the centers of the comedy universe right now. So with Mothership, a lot of the biggest comics in the world are in and out of there a lot. A lot of the guys who are like that I started with, like guys like Brian Simpson, like Derek Poston, Asana Ma, they're like some of the key players there, in addition to obviously the big stars of Hinchcliffe and Rogan and stuff. So I'm there a decent amount for that touring. And then also has one of the just right kind of outside of downtown where I'm playing, Cap City Comedy Club is one of the legendary comedy clubs in comedy club history, and it's one of my favorites to play. So I'm in Austin a lot. I like Austin crowds.
Yeah, before Austin ever turned into what it currently is as a sort of stand-up mecca, Cap City was a place that comedians looked forward to coming to. Even
100%,
though it's
yeah.
kind of in an armpit part of the city, well, the Helium people, after Cap City shut down because of COVID, they came in and said, no, we want this club to still continue, but they did it the right way. They did it smartly by putting it in the Domain, which is a beautiful area in and of itself.
Awesome.
They spared no expense with the club. I don't know if you performed there just yet. Acoustically,
Yeah.
it's as good as any club in the city right now, and it is a great place to see a comedy show too.
Great. And I'm like a middle-aged dad, and I have a lot of middle-aged parent fans, and they're like, "You had me at the mall." Yes. Ample parking. Like people like, I'm almost 40. Like we're at an age where everyone's like, I don't want to go downtown. That seems like a hassle. So uh coincidentally enough, even though the much cooler, quote unquote, cooler spot is Mothership, for what I do and my fan base up there just talking about how hard it is to be a dad and going through middle age, the mall is perfect for what we're looking for.
Yeah, there's the Museum of Ice Cream on one side. There's a
Oh,
steakhouse on the other side. There's a Lululemon not
great.
too far down the road.
Yeah, it's everything you want. I like to
Okay,
be
so
near a lot of good chains.
yeah, you are a middle-aged dad. You turned 40 at the end of this month. An early happy
Yeah.
birthday to you on that. And you
Thank
have
you.
three kids.
Hmm.
If I am doing my research correctly, it's a high school senior, a high school freshman, and then a 10-year-old. Is that right?
Wow, it's very good. Yeah, I don't. That's exactly right. I had to fact check you myself. I was like, I think that's right. Yeah, I got a senior, the freshman, and then a 10-year-old. Yep, you got it right. You knew it more than me.
So you're dealing with different levels of the parenthood experience right now with those three different ages. For you as somebody who's obviously been at it as long as you have now, you've got a kid that you're maybe going to be sending to college next year. What do you think the biggest challenge is for parents in 2024, Dustin?
Well, that's a fantastic question. You are right. Like parenting, when you have multiple kids, you are going through like a weird series. Like on the one hand, we have like a kid that we're like, all right, we got to start looking at colleges and applications and all that kind of stuff. And then you also have a kid who still kind of believes in Santa. That's an interesting paradigm to have simultaneously going on in your life, to be doing FAFSA and Santa in the same time. Um, as far as modern challenges, I mean, the phone is gigantic, right? I mean, like just constantly on it. And it is like you feel hypocritical as a parent when you get your screen report at the end of the week. You're like telling your kids never to be on the phone, and your phone's like, well, you were on it 8 hours every day, and it's only gone up every day since you got a phone. And you're like, all right, the call might be coming from in the house on this one.
Well,
So the phone's a real
I'm just glad
challenge.
to see schools finally doing something about that too, because
Mhm.
I mean, I've got two elementary school age kids and they're in third and fourth grade. And I've asked
Yeah,
them for the last couple of years, how many of your fellow classmates have phones or smartwatches or tablets or something. They're like everybody does, and they all
yep,
have them in class too. For schools to finally realize, okay, we've got to put a stop on this. They can
yeah,
have these
yeah,
things, they just can't have them out during class. Is
yeah.
hopefully going to do everybody well in the long term.
It is helpful sometimes knowing their location and being able to communicate them with is great. But yeah, the other one is Austin are people starting to buy kids e-bikes where you guys are?
Yeah, I
Oh
have
my,
started to see that.
this is the war. I can't it's like chaos because they don't obey any laws. They don't do any of the pedestrian laws. They don't do any of the traffic laws. You just got like a 9-year-old doing 35 miles per hour on the sidewalk. It's and now it's like the and then the so and they also have all the it's like we did wheelies on our BMXs as kids. And worst case scenario, you fell off and you scratched your they're causing multi-car wrecks like on 35 mile per hour roads. It's that's a new one that's just starting to emerge. And you're like, that feels like one of those things that in like 2 years, you're gonna be like, why were you allowed to do that without a license? This is highly illegal. Why would we just give them drugs at this point, too? Like,
Austin is also ground zero for the electric scooter bit too. So those have been around
yeah,
forever. You have they're not really skateboard, but the two wheelers that people wheel around. And I have heard examples of people having serious accidents on all these things. And a lot of
yeah,
times you see whether it's adults, teenagers, or younger kids, they're not wearing helmets at the same time. So it's like they're going
yeah.
with excessive speeds and they're doing so where it's like your margin for error is so slim.
And I don't want to be mean, but I think maybe the least cool way to die would be on a Lime scooter. You know, I don't mean to be too dark there, but I don't know if you get a funeral if you die at Lime scooter. I don't know if we need to remember how did he die? Ah, he had too many drinks downtown and tried to lime home. That feels
And
almost like just a natural consequence.
got hit by a pedicab in the process.
Listen, of the things that happen in downtown Austin, those might be the least dangerous.
Yeah, you got to avoid hobos with machetes at times. And look, the other thing with the electric bike too is like you want to teach kids how to ride bikes, and part of learning how to ride a bike is
Yeah,
learning how to ride a bike. It's learning how to go
yeah,
uphill. It's having to put the work in to actually get to from point A to point B. And yeah, it's less time consuming and I think more enjoyable to ride a bike to your friend's house versus having to walk even a couple of blocks to just switch the on button and just allow
yeah.
the bike to take you there yourself. It just feels a little bit too much like a cheat code to me.
There's no actual fitness involved in that. I say if you're going to do the e-bike, just, yeah, have them at least. The only time is justified, I think, is around the hobos with machetes. At that point, I don't mind the extra acceleration. But you downtown Austin, that could just be someone. I think you can take a picture with that person for $10. I think that person might be going to do a set on Kill Tony. It's hard to tell. Homeless. It's Austin has a thing where it is hard to tell who's homeless or not. Sometimes you're like, I don't know if they're homeless or they're just eccentric. You're like, oh, that dude with the snake over there. Like, no, no, no. Actually, you pay him for a picture. He's not dangerous. He's a tourist attraction. It's an interesting city.
My friends and I play a game. It's hipster or homeless, and in
Hipster.
October, which we're squarely in October, it's hipster homeless or Halloween. So
Yeah,
you
and
now get
but
to
you
play
might
that game this weekend when you're here too.
yeah, and I think you can add Kill Tony open micer to the list because I think that the Venn diagram is all pretty
Or hell, you can go
all
closer
one
if
and the
you're
same.
you can go
Yeah,
closer if you're talking William Montgomery. That because
yeah,
that guy
exactly. Yeah,
they
yeah.
check all three boxes by the time it's all said and done. So you and I, you're a sports fan. You are a Seattle native originally, and you and
Yeah.
I share a hatred for an eccentric billionaire, let's say, who ripped our team from our respective city. For me,
Oh, yeah.
Bud Adams, who stole the Oilers away from Houston and took them to Tennessee right as I was going from
Right.
childhood to adulthood. So now I'm just an NFL bastard, Dustin. You as a
Yeah.
Seattle guy are a big Supersonics fan, and you lost them to Oklahoma City of all places, which is still just
Yeah.
disgusting to have to say as a result of Howard Schultz. You still foster animosity towards Howard Schultz for taking your Sonics away from you?
Oh, I don't drink Starbucks. I've still boycott the company. I'm so anti. It is so weird. People don't, you really feel for Oakland right now. That idea when you lose a team, especially one that was so pivotal to your childhood, it's a weird, and like I don't watch the NBA anymore. That's a weird because in the 90s, like that was our team. Now in 95, Griffey got the Mariners cool and stuff, and we
That's
got
true.
good and we got the best, maybe the best baseball video game ever.
Oh
And
yeah,
Griffey is so good. But before that, like we were a Sonics town. The only championship was them. The Seahawks were always threatening to leave and go down to LA and terrible. We had to we all I love Cortez Kennedy, but he was not moving the needle for, sports fans everywhere. But just to straight lose the team, a team that had a good fan base, they were essentially just robbed in the night over. It was Schultz was the villain, Stern was the villain, Clay Bennett was the villain. It's all, yeah, it's super sad. So it's like, even right now where I'm lamenting, I mean, all that being said, after after this year, I'm like, I do kind of wish the Mariners would leave at this. He took the wrong team. This
Well, they
I
give you
wish
guys
this
another
was Mariners.
they give you guys another professional franchise, but it's a hockey team. And look, hockey's a lot of fun to attend in person. It's not the same as the Sonics, though.
Yeah, well, and hockey's weird to learn as an adult. When you don't
True.
know the rules, you're like, what's icing? I don't, huh? It's the whistle. You're like, so they kind of sub during the game. They can just hop over the fighting's okay. Sometimes if you don't know the rules of hockey, it's tough to. Yeah, live hockey's fantastic, but yeah, I'm still, and you don't have the decades of investment into it. So that being said, and as a Seattle sports fan, as a UW graduate, it was a fantastic sports weekend for us. Not only UW, so I went to UW. We beat Michigan, which is
Yeah,
fantastic, and Kalen DeBoer lost to Vandy. Fantastic weekend for us. I
that is
mean,
true.
my algorithm on TikTok knows me so well. It's all just Alabama fans complaining about Kalen DeBoer. Everything from his game management, his clock management, to his defense, to his apparel. They don't like how he dresses, and I don't know if Alabama's going to rebound or not. But just a fantastic week to be a Washington Husky fan.
What is that because he doesn't do enough shopping in the big and tall section at Walmart? What's the problem with the tire?
Listen, you know this is a sports fan. Sometimes all you have, certain seasons, you just enter the season and you go, all I have is rooting against other teams. That's what I got this year. Like I will say, like Texas is an interesting one because Sark left us, but not for you guys. And Sark had like some struggles as a human. And I find myself kind of rooting for Sark now because he's a great story. There's not as much animosity there. Even though I was at the Sugar Bowl and one of the best nights of my life walking the streets of New Orleans after we beat y'all. Uh, but Kalen DeBoers is so fresh and so new, and our program had such turnover that we're like, listen, if we win 7 or 8 games, it's a huge thing for us. But even better, if DeBoer is bad and a huge flop, this is going to be a fantastic season for us. This and the Astros are already out of the playoffs. Great. That's all we have in Seattle is rooting against other teams.
Well, I'm a Rangers fan, so I root against the Astros too. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that you were at that Sugar Bowl in
Yeah.
New Orleans the first day of this year because I was also at that game. And
Oh, beautiful.
I'm a Texas fan, so I was disappointed. It was an incredible game, though.
Yeah.
For a couple of things that will always stick with me for the rest of my life from that game. One, attending games of the Sugar Bowl or at the Superdome, excuse me, is different than any other football game you will ever attend. There is just something in
100%.
the air that is impossible to fully encapsulate unless you're actually there in person. But the
Yeah.
two that'll stick out to me are one, I love the feistiness of Washington fans. I was only familiar with Oregon fans from that part of the country because I lived in Oregon for a little bit. So Oregon
Yeah.
Ducks,
I'm
Oregon
sorry.
State. I don't want to take too many shots. They're kind of a soft fan base. Washington
Oh,
fans.
the softest fan base.
Okay, good.
Oh,
I'm glad you agree with me on that. It's not
I mean,
surprising.
that's our rival is Oregon. Just
Yeah.
like, you know what they are is Oregon is like your friend who got new money. Like you're just like, dude, you didn't earn this. This is you just your family's new money. You got no grit, you got no history, you have no national championships. Yeah, it's I'm like there was that big article, and then I'll let you get back to the point that, Phil Knight, Uncle Phil, he said, Uncle Phil said he wants to devote like everything he has to make sure that Oregon wins a national championship before he dies. And
Yep.
I had to really evaluate myself as a sports fan because I thought, I'm not so petty that I want him to die before they win a national championship. I'm so petty that I want them to never win a national championship and him live forever. That's that's my I want him to just be in an internal agony. I I love Eugene. I love Oregon. Ducks fans are some of the worst fans. They're just obnoxious. That being said, they do have the best mascot in sports, and I'll give them that.
See, I take exception to the loving Eugene thing. And look, I know you have to go perform in Eugene from time to time, so you don't want to bag
Yeah.
on the city too hard.
Yeah.
Eugene is an overrated college town too, in my opinion. It's basically a logger town that's been turned into a college town, but like Autzen Stadium's kind of in the middle of nowhere. I know it's supposed to be a
Sure.
great crowd and whatnot, but the thing that impressed me about Washington fans is that they weren't taking any crap. Like there was some trash talk going on back and forth between us, and it was like older people, younger people, and look, it was
Yeah.
all friendly. It could have turned hostile, I'm guessing. But when you got Detlef Shrimp sitting 3 rows away from me, there's another former
Yeah.
Washington basketball player who's close by as well, who's trash talking. It turned into a lot of fun, even though Texas was losing in that game. And the
Yeah.
other thing that I'll always be able to picture this. I've never been more impressed by a quarterback's performance in a football game in person than I was what Michael Penix was
Right.
doing that night. It was
Yeah.
crazy to watch how well he was controlling everything with his arm, with his athleticism. They were calling run plays at the right time as well.
Yeah.
I know Texas had a shot at the end. If they had caught that final pass in the end zone, they could have won that game. But man, Washington deserved it. And to be completely blunt about it, I was rooting for you guys against Michigan. I wanted to see you guys win that game, but they
Yeah.
had the right game plan to beat y'all in that very last game of the season.
Yeah, I being from Seattle, I'm a natural pessimist, and I remember walking out the streets, and I brought my son, who that was our Christmas present was to go to the Sugar Bowl,
Hmm.
and we were there, and I remember thinking this might be as good as it gets for a Husky fan ever. Like we may or may not win a national championship. Not a lot of colleges do win. It's a short there's a short list of schools that actually do win natties. And I don't know if we'll get in there because we do have a problem with coaches leaving. That does happen with us. Uh, so we'll see. I hope, but and I was impressed with Texas fans too, because there was everyone was nice. You took the L well, what are you going to say? It was a great game. And I did feel what you're saying is interesting. I did feel almost like a surprise respect from the Texas fans because that game was very far for a Seattleite to get down to New Orleans. Much easier for you. Way more Texas fans than UW fans, but hung in there, did our fight songs, our chants. We're great fans. It was a cool night, yeah. But man, walking the streets of New Orleans surrounded by Texas fans that just took an L was a fantastic moment for a sports fan.
Oh, it's a bitter pill to swallow. I know Texas fans have done themselves no favors over the years, and Texas fans get upset with me because I'll call us out when we suck. And I'm gonna be honest with you right now. Let's see, there's not the Texas game is in Dallas this weekend. I'm gonna be at that on Saturday, so you're not
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get an
yeah.
opportunity to go see a day game. The fan base has been weirdly calm this year, like almost too calm during
Oh,
games, and it's like, guys, we're in the SEC now. These people will chew one another's arms off to root their team on to victory. Like we need to do a better job of being a little bit more proactive with standing up on a big third down for our defense to help them out
right,
because
right.
just feed off of that energy. And if Texas isn't ready for that Georgia game here in a couple of weeks, that's going to be a problem. I feel good about Texas' chances in that one, but they need the crowd to be behind them in order to win that game. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know SEC football other than as a casual fan, but it seems to me like you guys are the class of the SEC right now. I mean, that loss, like, if you think about Alabama's had a bad 6 quarters
Yeah.
because I mean they went out big against Georgia, but then that comeback was, I mean, the people are just carving through that defense. So
True.
I'll just say objectively as an outsider, to me, Texas is clearing away the favorite right now. That being said, as someone who had Sark as a coach for a while, I wouldn't worry about your big games. I would worry about some game that he overlooks because he has a prime time, and this is coming under Pete Carroll. It makes sense. He has like a prime time element to him. I mean, his first year, he beat number 3 USC when he was at UW. It was one of the biggest upsets in in UW history. We were like 30-point dogs. It was crazy, and we hit a game-winning kick to win it. I wouldn't worry about your OU, your Georgia game. I don't know the rest of your schedule, but there might be one that gets overlooked, say a Vandy type. Now, no one's going to overlook Vandy again. That's where he would slip of us every once in a while. It's like, did we just lose to Arizona State? That's where Sark I'd be a little more worried if I were a Texas fan, but just from the outside looking in, to me, I'm like, it seems like it's Texas and Ohio State, and then everybody else.
So you're a UW alum. You've obviously been to a ton of games there. How cool is it to get to sailgate before the games?
Well, the thing about sailgating is you gotta have money, and I'm not one of those UWs with money. So I have tailgated, and I've been to lots of them, and I've looked out, and it looks lovely. But I don't come from one percenter Microsoft Lake Washington money. I'm more South Puget Sound area, but it looks lovely. I'll tell you that. And it is, when they say it's the greatest setting in college football, like it's just so unique to be in the city, on the campus, on the water. And when you get those bright days, like I was there at the Oregon game last year when game day was there and everything, it was awesome. It's spectacular. There's nothing like it. So it's a great stadium. Big fan.
I did hear you say that you've got a big issue with the Denver airport, which I also have a big issue with. The mile long airport in the mile high city. Every time I am at that airport, I realize that it may be the worst airport in the country.
Oh, it is the worst airport in the country, bar none. It starts with the fact that it's an hour outside of the city of Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible airport. It's once you get through security, it's fine or whatever. It's a big long airport. It's busy. There's little hints of the Illuminati. That's fun. But yeah, it's so far away and it has legitimately the worst security. I mean, you just because you know how it is. You open up and you just see this like sea of humanity. You're like, where? Why are this many people in Denver right now? It's just, did the whole city get here? They're just unloading by the hundreds. And when you see how many people are in that airport, it doesn't make you feel better about society. It doesn't feel you, it certainly makes you regret probably bringing kids into this world, you know? So you're like, I think I made a mistake. This was, what are we doing here? So yeah, and you're all dehydrated, you're feeling all lightheaded from the it's a terrible airport. That being said, the Texas airport's pretty good. I like the Texas airports. I got no qualms there.
Buckle up because
Is
it's
Austin getting that much worse? Probably. Each time you go back to, well, Austin's big problem right now is it's full of Californians.
yeah, I mean, look, I know that that's a common gripe, and there's some truth to that. But Austin's airport just isn't big enough for how big this city has gotten so quickly. So
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
you'll be coming in. So ACL Fest is this weekend. So you're
Yeah.
going to get there, and it's going to be complete chaos.
Yeah.
And baggage, if you're trying to get an Uber or Lyft, you have to walk like a mile outside of the airport, winding through parking garages to get the Uber or Lyft.
Great, great.
So hopefully you have somebody coming to pick you up because that'll.
Yeah. Yeah, I really I decided competing against, one of the biggest music festivals in the country was a good idea. I thought, who wants to see Dua Lipa, Tyler the Creator, and Sturgill when they could see Dustin Nickerson? That was a smart move. Um, so yeah, that will be chaotic. And then I didn't even think about it. On Monday after the festival's over. I'm going to Nashville of all places. That's going to be a very full flight. There's going to be a lot of people leaving that festival to go to Nashville. Might have some famous people on there. We'll see.
Yes, there are. Yes, look, let me just make the sales pitch for you. It's going to be in the mid 90s all weekend long. It's going to be hot as hell. It's going to remain hot at night even after the sun comes down. You go to Captain
Great.
Comedy Club Friday night for a couple of shows, Saturday night for a couple of shows, Sunday evening for a show. I'll be at the Sunday show. Not only do you get air conditioning, you escape the elements, you also get a seat too, versus having to
Yes.
stand shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of complete strangers, most of whom don't care nearly as much as you do if you actually care about the band on stage. So
Yeah.
go to Cap City Comedy Club to see Dustin perform this weekend, capcitycomedy.com. All right, last question now, real quick, Dustin, before we go. I love stand up. You obviously love stand up. What do you love about stand up comedy?
Oh, I love that it's so silly that this is my job. I think about like I was telling this to Mel. We were at we were at a concert on Monday. Big music fan. I'm actually going to a couple of the ACL shows. Like I'm excited. But as we're leaving the show, I was just like riffing a joke with Mel about how it was like not to bore you too much with like where joke ideas come from, but like I told Mel, I was like, I think I'm a natural leader because I'm a Leo, and I go like, not the astrological sign. I mean the Ninja Turtle. And she laughed and it made the group laugh. And I was like, this is hilarious. This is my job. Like I'm gonna craft that, and that's gonna go on, and that might get told on TV. Just the idea that like when people in comedy like say like, oh, you shouldn't make fun of things. You're like, no, that's literally my job, is to take things and make fun of them. So it's very silly, it's very unserious, and that's what I like about it. I don't like serious things. I'm not a serious person. I don't like when people take things too seriously. So that's not only just stand up as whole, but that's what my life is, which is just to make people less serious and take things less seriously. I love because life will tell you what things you need to take seriously. There are certain things, whatever it may be, your social issues, your family issues that you should take, but I don't have anything to do with it, and I love it.
Well, I know sometimes people cringe at the idea that stand up is an art form, but it is. It's performing art. And it is really that last frontier where you can take even serious issues and bring people together who may be on different sides of those issues to make them laugh. And look, you're very apolitical in terms of the comedy that I've seen you perform so far, but you're absolutely right. It is a joy to watch somebody who has gotten really good at the craft, who has taken the time to get good, has put those hours in to make a room full of strangers all laugh in unison. And you have
Yeah.
an opportunity to watch Dustin do that this weekend. Cap City Comedy Club, 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday, a show on Sunday. CapCityComedy.com for tickets. Also, make sure to go to his website, DustinNickerson.com. His latest special can be found through there. It's actually on YouTube, but you can click through his website. It Runs in the Family is the name of the special. And then also check out his podcast. Don't Make Me Come Back There is the name of the podcast. And the book is How to Be Married, in parentheses, to Melissa. That's his wife's name. That came out a couple years ago. No doubt worth the price of admission as well. Dustin, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for the time. Safe travels to and from Austin this weekend.
Thanks, Trey. Appreciate it.
If you're still watching or listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or elsewhere, I would greatly appreciate you subscribing to this show. Please do like today's episode. Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. Thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, visit booksonpod.com. We'll talk to you next time on Books on Pod.